Welcome to another episode of the Hockey Hub Podcast. So glad you could join us, Adam Pellerin, alongside Judd Sirott. You're already smiling, Judd. It's going to be a great show, I can tell.
You know what? I just love the energy from you, Adam. I love it.
I know. We talked before the show, and I was like, hey, how you doing, Judd? Everything going well? And then I'm like, all right, it's game time, baby. Let's go. That's how I roll. Yeah, looking forward to another great show. We're going to get into the Bruins play, recent play under Joe Sacco, look ahead a little bit to the game against the Flyers, but really more that long trip coming up for the Bruins when they're on the road for nearly 2 weeks, playing 5 games against teams from Western Canada and Seattle. So we'll get into that. But, you know, Judd, in the last episode of the Hockey Hub podcast, Andy Brickley was on. We talked about the Centennial game, and I thought, you know, it would be remiss if we didn't get your thoughts on it as well, because it was just such a special day at TD Garden with so many legends walking through the door. And, you know, we came off a season where we celebrated the Centennial. And, you know, I'll say this before I get your thoughts on it. You know, I thought Sunday's game, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I thought, you know what, we just had the Centennial season. We just saw all of these legends come through the door honoring the different eras of Bruins hockey, which was just outstanding. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I'm thinking, all right, well, we just did that for a full season. How special can it be on Sunday? I mean, we just experienced it. Well, you know what? It was. It was that and more. It was like you never get tired of seeing Bobby Orr or Phil Esposito or Wayne Cashman or Chief. It never gets old. It was just as special. What were your thoughts on Sunday?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And a credit to the Bruins organization. I think every little detail they were able to nail. And there were so many things to love about what took place in that Centennial game against the Canadians. One of the things that I really loved was, okay, they had the time capsule at center ice. So the whole idea was to put these memories from the first century of Bruins hockey in the time capsule and then look ahead to the next century of Boston Bruins hockey. And I love that the way that they did it, bringing the youth hockey players from around New England onto the ice to pass the puck. It was the legends from the first 100 years passing the puck to the next 100 years of Boston Bruins and the heritage of the organization. So I absolutely loved it. I just loved the heritage of the organization. And a few things that really came to mind, because this is the oldest American franchise in the National Hockey League. And it's the third franchise in the NHL that's celebrated its centennial. Montreal is the oldest, and then it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the Bruins helped put hockey on the map in the United States. If you really think about it and go back, and I had the opportunity to go back and read some of the news clippings from December of 1924, and I mentioned this to Brick in our open. 2 things were clear. 1, the style that the Bruins played, and 2, how much the fans in New England embraced that style. But you had legendary players from that era, guys like Lionel Hitchman and Eddie Shore, and then as you move a little bit deeper into the history of the organization, then Milt Schmidt comes around. What you're talking about are guys who essentially planted the flag for the sport of hockey in the United States. And I think a lot of the popularity that you see now with the game and with the National Hockey League, the Bruins are right at the forefront of that, right at the vanguard of why the game is the way it is. But the other thing that came to mind, Adam, because you mentioned some of those names, you mentioned Orr and Esposito, and Willie O'Ree was on the ice, and Wayne Cashman was there. Raymond Bourque was kind enough to join us in the booth for a bunch of the second period. I think the difference when it comes to whether it's organizations, and we can talk about certain businesses or cities, you name it, it's the people that separate this. And the special people that were a part of the Bruins organization, both on the ice, the people who built it, the fans that support the organization, that's what makes this thing so special.
I completely agree. Well said and accurate. And, you know, if you want to start on Saturday, and the unveiling of the Centennial Legacy Monument in front of TD Garden, which again had legends and fans in attendance as Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, Brad Marchand, and dignitaries from the state of Massachusetts stepped to the podium to talk about the statue itself, how it honors the past, present, and the future. And that was the theme this weekend, was honoring all generations and future generations who are going to be a part of the organization, fans who are supporting the team now and in the future. And I just thought that you said it was well done. It was well executed. And the other event that took place was the Pass the Torch Showcase at Matthews Arena, where it all began for the Bruins back in 1924, when it was then called the Boston Arena. And the Bruins were able to beat Montreal, the Montreal Maroons, 2-1 in that game. And so you had wins 100 years apart. And speaking of the win on Sunday, that was an important game for the Bruins to win. And it really was, because there's a lot of pressure for the players. And you saw the footage of all of the legends lining up against the wall with their hockey sticks in hand, waiting to go onto the ice for that pregame ceremony, which you talked about, in that vault that was at center ice, and that wonderful moment of passing the puck, sort of symbolic of passing it on to the next generations. And you see all these players walking out onto the ice, fist bumping all of the legends, which I just thought was a great moment. But I started to talk about it. It's like, it's a lot of pressure for these guys going out on the ice with all these legends in the building. You got to perform, and credit to the Bruins players. They were able to do that, and they provided some great excitement, especially in that first period, Judd, where they scored 3 times in a span of 70 seconds, which is something that we hadn't seen all year long from this Bruins team. So they went above and beyond, and they beat the Canadians, which I thought was just great.
I know you mentioned the word pressure, Adam, but I think in talking to some of the guys both after the game and I had a chance to jump out to practice on Monday, that they were so inspired by what they saw on the screen and the people that they had to meet and some of the messages that were delivered by some of the alumni to the team before the game, that there was no chance Montreal was winning that game. Not a chance. Somebody had mentioned to me before the game, how do you think the Bruins are going to come out? And I knew that they were going to come out like they were on fire. I knew that they were going to play with that intensity. There's no way that you can be around those guys and see some of that footage and hear some of the words that were coming from the alumni and not come out and play some of your best hockey. And they were terrific in that opening 20.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch, and we haven't, truth be told, had a ton of fun moments this year for the Bruins, but that truly was a fun moment. And in terms of some of the production value that we saw when it comes to the Centennial game and the presentation, the drone video, and I talked about it with Brick because it was just incredible, and it's worth another look. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you can see it again. The drone video starting over Causeway and flying past Bobby Orr and the Bobby Orr statue. And I said to Brick, I said, man, when I saw that, my jaw dropped. I said, this is going to be awesome. As you go through the doors at TD Garden and Blades going through security, which provides a little bit of levity, right? That's fun. And then flying to Heritage Hall. And, you know, we had an opportunity to go to Heritage Hall when Jack Edwards was honored that night at TD Garden on November 3rd, in the game against the Kraken. We had a little post-game reception at Heritage Hall, which is just awesome, just to see these Bruins legends as the drone flies by. And we're going to see you and Brick coming up in just a bit, and we get to hear your voice as well. I want to get your perspective on how this was produced and how everything played out.
Well, first of all, full marks to Eric Russo. This was his brainchild, along with Adam Rogowin and the Bruins PR staff, to put this together. I think one of the most amazing things about this is when you watch it, you think, oh, that's AI. That's completely fabricated. And that's what makes this so amazing. It's real. Now, all of it was not shot at the same time. So Brick and I were asked to be at TD Garden in the booth, dressed and ready to go at 1 o'clock. Eric Russo said, I'm going to need you from 1 to 2, and that's it. So Cam Neely was also in his regular booth, a couple booths down to the right. Bob Beers, Ryan Johnston were a couple of booths down to our left in the radio booth. Those guys were there at the same time, but some of the other footage that you see, whether it's Nifty or Taz or Bobby Orr out in front, that was filmed at different junctures of the day. And all that they asked was, we want to do like a traditional open for you. Originally they said, bring your headset and we'll have you turn around. But they said, okay, that's not going to work. So why don't you face the ice and just sort of go through the normal stuff that you would go through with Brick before you're starting a game. So that's what we did. And he said, you're going to hear the drone coming. And at that point, you can start. The drone will actually record some of the stuff. And then it stops like right in front of your face, like zzz, and then it moves. So we did like 3 takes. And then he said, whatever you had said, can you say it exactly like that into my phone? I'm just going to record it on my phone. And if we need to, we'll match it up with the video. But the technology, how they did it. And I think the other thing that's amazing, how many people had a chance to see this who are casual Bruins fans or casual National Hockey League fans that were blown away by this production.
So awesome. And seeing Brad Marchand out on the ice, and the video wraps up with Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron looking at the Stanley Cups and their cup from 2011. So it was just really well done. I thought it was awesome that you guys were a part of that as well. So
it was an honor.
Just one of the many cool things, over the weekend with the Centennial game. And we had talked about Willie O'Ree earlier, part of the Pass the Torch showcase, an ambassador for the NHL, of course, broke the color barrier with the Bruins back in 1958. We had a chance to hear from him this past weekend.
I'm just so proud to be a part of the Bruins family. When I went to their training camp in 1958, I became a Bruins fan, and since then, everything has been just absolutely fantastic for me. The organization is a great organization, and I'm proud and very happy to be a part of it.
Willie, what do you remember of the atmosphere here on game day and in your era?
Well, it was loud.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any other louder fans in the NHL than the Bruins fans. I watch them on the telly, and every time a goal is scored or something, I mean, you can hardly hear the. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
We say just with Johnny Busick a little bit. What's it been like to reunite with so many?
Oh, great! When I first come up, Johnny, he took me under his wing, and I didn't have any problems. I mean, as far as that, because if there was something going on the ice, there was always a Bruin there to back me up. So I'm happy. And when I found out that I was coming on this trip, I was overjoyed, really.
Have you been able to connect a lot with the current guys, and what's that been like to kind of bridge those gaps?
Oh, and then the young players, I've met all of them, and it's just nice to know that so many young players are coming up and being a part of the organization. 18, 19 years old, and when I come up with the Bruins, I was in my 20s, but it's a great organization, I have to say, and. I live in San Diego, and anywhere I go, they say, "Oh, you're a Bruins," and I said, "Yeah." I was a Montreal fan in 1956, but then when I went to the Bruins training camp in 1958, I became a Bruins fan, and it's great, really. It's a nice feeling.
Is there a moment or a game that really sticks out to you from the playing days?
Memorial Day?
A moment or a game that sticks out to you?
Oh, yeah, well, my first game on January the 18th, 1958, against the Montreal Canadiens. That's why tonight's game is a big game for me, to see them beat the Canadiens. And then when I scored my first goal in the NHL, it was against Montreal Canadiens here in the Boston Gardens on January the 1st, 1961. So those two really stick in my mind.
What's it like for you to come in and see your name?
It's great, to look up there and see my banner. I've been blessed over the years. I really have. I've had good health, and my family has been very supportive. And when every opportunity I get a chance to come to Boston, I do.
Well, you've been asked to be an ambassador and for hockey. Are you proud of the way you filled that role over the last few decades?
Yes. Especially when I came with the National Hockey League in 1988, Commissioner Bettman, and thanks to him for bringing me aboard. And at that time, it was the diversity program, which is now the Hockeyist for Everyone program. And I was doing a lot of traveling at that time to schools and boys and girls clubs and juvenile detention facilities, trying to get more boys and girls interested in playing hockey. And really, it's been great. I haven't traveled as much now, but I still do a lot of Zooms, do a lot of phone interviews, and stay relatively, involved with the game.
You seem to enjoy working with the youngsters, talking to them.
Oh, it's great, and I still get emails and phone calls from some of the boys and girls that I've worked with over the years, and they tell me that some of the things that I've talked about, they're using them in their daily life, and they said I feel that I'm a much better person. So that's nice to hear. It's a nice feeling.
What made you a Canadiens fan in your childhood?
Pardon me?
What made you a Canadiens fan in your childhood?
Well, I was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, and I turned pro with the Quebec Aces in 1956, and they were affiliated with the Montreal Canadiens. But then I came to the Bruins training camp on 2 occasions, and then turned pro in 1956, and then became a Bruins fan.
What a legend. What a gentleman. And my God, that man is 89 years old. He looks incredible. Just a great ambassador to the game of hockey. And listening to Willie O'Ree speak, I was fortunate enough to meet him, during his Hockey Hall of Fame induction a few years back. And just an incredible honor, incredible man. And it was great to see him this weekend.
No, let's go back to some of the stuff that we talked about coming out of the Centennial. I think, again, one of the things that makes the Bruins organization so special are the people. And you're talking about a guy in Willie O'Ree who has transcended the game, broke the color barrier back in 1958. And the other thing that he talked about, or since 1988, we're talking about a guy who has been a part of, at that point, he mentioned it was the NHL's diversity program. Now it's diversity, inclusion, and it's a big, giant tent that he has built around the game of hockey, and he's brought more people in. But I think that he's a transcendent figure, and you could tell, and you've had an opportunity to have an opportunity to talk to him, that just that personality. I think he's a guy that you gravitate to. He's a guy whose words have meaning, they have depth, and so special that he's a part of the Bruins organization and what he's meant to the game of hockey. Just, to me, he typifies what the organization is all about.
No question. That number 22 will hang in the rafters forever. And speaking of a couple of retired numbers, Rick Middleton, nifty, and Terry O'Reilly, their numbers 16 and 24 also hang in the rafters at TD Garden. Both were captains during their time with the Boston Bruins, and both of them had an opportunity to talk to Dale, Billy, and Barry on Sunday.
Dale, Billy, Barry, joined by two of the greats, two guys whose numbers are hanging in those rafters. Rick Middleton and Terry O'Reilly are with us. I was trying to do the math and I can't do it. How many goals do you think in the history of this team you both figured in on the same goal?
I'm not sure, but what.
I did math once about the number of points, not just goals, but points. And we had something like 610 points in 3 years together.
Wow!
And to put that into perspective, Gretzky only has 618.
Yeah.
But hold it. Be careful. That's Nifty's math. Okay. When you look it up, it may be a little different.
It might not be exact.
So we had.
He had 550. I had 75.
Oh no, you had 550 PMs. Yeah. You had the penalty minutes.
We had 2,000 minutes together.
Yeah. You remember when you were in Philly in those days, and we'd go in for our exhibition games that would be about 6 hours long, right? And they dropped the puck, and Peter McNabb and I always joked about this. And if you were on the ice, you'd feel the same way. They dropped the puck, and all of a sudden, everybody would drop their gloves. All 5 guys would grab me, or they would grab him, and he'd be skating around looking for somebody, and I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah.
Terry, we showed the footage earlier of the night at Madison Square Garden. And, I could sort of see Terry O'Reilly going over the boards and getting involved. I couldn't picture Peter McNabb doing that.
Well, he was my buddy and my teammate. He was coming up to look after me. Actually, all of you guys.
Well, the guy that came down the steps was the guy's brother that Terry grabbed. Yeah. So when he came down and jumped on Terry, Peter was the next guy over. Yeah. He saw Peter coming. He ran back up the steps. And then enter Mike Milbury, who was in the hall with me. He had no idea what happened.
And he chased the guy up to the top.
Yeah, took a shoe off.
Yeah, beat him with his own shoe.
When you guys think Montreal Canadiens, what comes to mind for each of you?
They ain't what they used to be.
No, I always said that you always had to be at the top of your game. I mean, you knew they were going to force you to not make mistakes and play as good as you could, and you might have a chance to beat them, especially in 77, 78 when they had such a great team. But we knew we could beat them in 79, and we came within that close to do it.
Yeah.
I said earlier tonight there are 12 retired numbers in those rafters. You guys have 2 of the 12. Taz, what did it mean to you when they put your number up there?
Greatest honor to a hockey player, to a Boston Bruin, to finalize and summarize your career. It was my home. Came down here when I was 19 years old. Never left. So.
And in your case, Nift,
well, after 30 years, I said, I can die a happy man now. At the age of 65.
How about this entire year? This is kind of the cap, the ending of it, the cream on the crop a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a great year, a great ceremony. We used to, in the old days, always look at Montreal and say, look how they do their performance. It was the top, the Bruins right up there now, aren't they? This is so much fun.
Yeah. And I'd just like to say, being up there with Nifty and Ray Bork, 2 of my former teammates and my co-captains when I was coaching. I called them both in and asked them to be co-captains, and
which was another great honor
to be up there beside each other. It's great. I look up there and my heart warms. So.
What was it like standing in the hallway and the players coming in between you and bumping fists on their way out?
I thought it was great. I mean, and they really appreciated it too, because they know the history. If they've been watching it at all over the years, seeing the tapes, and they really got pumped. Look at the score today.
Yeah.
Oh, you're taking credit for that now?
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
All I could think of was how young they look. Did I look that young?
2 of the great players in the history of this team. 2 of the great nicknames too. Nifty and Taz. It's great to visit with you guys. Thanks very much.
So awesome to hear from those guys. Been saying that a lot. So awesome to hear from these guys or those guys. But it was just a special weekend at TD Garden. I do want to move on, though, Judd, because we have a special weekend coming up at Warrior Ice Arena. We're going to have an incredible alumni game for the Warrior for Life Fund, the Nate Hardy Memorial Game. 14 members of the 2011 Boston Bruins will be taking the ice for an incredible cause against the Warrior for Life Fund team, who, by the way, have some ringers on their team as well. But with that said, I want to read off a couple of names on the roster. Patrice Bergeron, who made his alumni game debut last year, Zdeno Chara, Tim Thomas. I'm just going to read the whole roster. Mark Recchi, David Krejci, Chris Kelly, Tuukka Rask, Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Sean Thornton, Gregory Campbell, Adam McQuaid, Andrew Ferentz, Daniel Paille, all from the 2011 team. Kevin Miller, Andrew Alberts, Mark Mowers, PJ Stock, Brian Smolinski, and Tim Schaller will be playing as well. Interestingly enough, Andrew Alberts, who of course was a former Bruin, played Boston College, was on the ice for the Vancouver Canucks in the 2011 Cup Final. So he gets to play with those guys who are being honored for winning the Cup Final, and Albie's going to be looking there and saying, yeah, I remember that too.
Well, it's such a terrific cause, and I'm not surprised to see the amount of guys from that 2011 team who are going to participate. And my old partner Bob Beers used to joke, especially here in the last couple of years, the alumni team has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, a little bit. And I don't know if they've ever had anybody like Bergie who still back checks during the alumni game.
It's not Andrew Raycroft, right?
Yeah, but I hear Razor's got some pretty good mitts. He scored a couple of goals for the alumni team.
Oh, that might be. I'm sure he could tee it up. All the goalies love scoring goals. I don't know if they're too keen on back checking, which I completely understand. So there's 37 for you. Go get them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a great weekend at Warrior Ice Arena. And as you would expect, I believe tickets went on sale on November 9th. They sold out that very same day. So it's going to be a great event. We'll bring you highlights, of course, on our Nesson platforms of that game. But I do want to go back to a great interview that we had with Frank Simonetti, Captain Ryan Croley, former Navy SEAL, and Mark Mowers on the Bruins alumni game and playing with that incredible 2011 roster, and just a little bit of a background of what this game is all about.
Joining us are some special guests looking ahead to a special game being played on December 7th at Warrior Ice Arena, the Face-Off for Heroes, the Nate Hardy Memorial Game, as the Warrior for Life All-Stars take on the Boston Bruins alumni. And joining us to talk about it, the Warrior for Life Fund president and founder, retired Navy SEAL Captain Ryan Croley, Bruins alumni president and board member of the Warrior Fund for Life, Frank Simonetti. You have a former NHLer as well who's going to be taking the ice in this alumni game, and that's Mark Mowers. Thanks to all three of you for joining us here in the Hockey Hub podcast. Looking forward to the game. I just want to get the excitement level from all three of you. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you having us on. From our standpoint, I'm showing up with a group of active duty retired SEALs that are going to come up and play the Boston Bruins in what initially was a friendly game, where we'd come up and just everyone would get out there. But recently, Frank Simonetti and the Boston Bruins have really elevated this to a much, much more competitive game. So we'll bring the best that we can, but it's going to be tough against this lineup that they're getting against us.
Yeah, Frank, a pretty good lineup you put together. You look at that roster, it's unbelievable. It's going to be a lot of excitement leading into this one.
There is a lot of excitement, Adam. It was a friendly game until the Warrior for Life on All-Stars beat us a couple of years ago. And they beat us quite handily. So we take no chances now. We stacked the lineup last year by adding Patrice Bergeron. It was a 2-1 game. But this year's game has turned out to be a mini reunion of the 2011 Stanley Cup team. And if you allow me to read the lineup, captained by Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara. We have Tim Thomas as coach, Mark Recchi, David Krejci, Chris Kelly, Tuukka Rask, Dennis Seidenberg, Johnny Boychuk, Sean Thornton, Gregory Campbell, Adam McQuaid, and breaking news, Andrew Ferentz.
Oh!
Is joining the lineup as well. We wanted to hold that news for you, Adam. And joining that elite roster is Kevin Miller, who is a board member of the Warrior for Life Fund and veteran of the Boston Bruins alumni. Andrew Alberts, who is a Warrior for Life Fund ambassador and Bruins alumni. Mark Mowers, who you introduced earlier. PJ Stock, making his debut with the Boston Bruins alumni. Brian Smolinski, a former Bruin and employee now of the National Hockey League. And Tim Schaller, who's good friends with all these guys. So we've got 18 power forwards and defensemen. And our goaltender will be Cleon Daskalakis. He's really the only Bruins goaltender that wants to play net anymore.
They all think they're David Pastrnak, don't they?
They're actually pretty good with the puck. I'm not going to discredit them at all here. And they'll be backed up by Keith Segui, one of the Bruins E-Bug goalies and a good friend of the alumni. So we have a great lineup.
Yeah, I've seen Razor on the ice making moves, trying to dangle out there. It's all those goalies, man. They think they're skaters. It's funny. And good luck getting PJ Stock to come out of his shell too. That's going to be really tough, I think, for that to happen.
He's shy. You're right.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, you're a part of this star-studded roster. You're also, involved with the Warrior for Life Fund as an ambassador, as Frank mentioned. What does playing in this game mean to you?
You know what? It's since I got involved with this, Warrior for Life Fund, I'm, fortunate to be a part of it. Fortunate to be, part of the Bruins alumni, to be quite honest, and putting those two together, and getting invited to play with the game and being at the game in name of Nathan Hardy, who I have history with back at the University of New Hampshire, along with his parents. It's just something that it's once they put it on for the next year, it's right on my calendar, and it's probably one of my favorite, most special days of the year. And like mentioned, it was kind of like a fun game before, and now it's become a more competitive thing. And to be quite honest, I don't even know how I'm still on the roster, other than being part of the Warrior for Life Fund. But once again, I'm grateful, I'm fortunate, and I'm thankful that I don't have to play, hopefully, with Patrice Bergeron this year, because last year I almost died because he has not slowed down one bit from when he retired. So hopefully I could be on the fourth line, just plug and grind it out, and have some fun and some laughs with the guys.
Tell Bergie there's no back checking in the alumni game. Oh, yeah, I mean, geez.
There's no telling him that. I don't think he lost a face-off last year.
No surprise. It was great to see Patrice Bergeron on the ice. And you mentioned Nathan Hardy, and Ryan, I'll pose this question to you. Who was Nathan Hardy, and why is the game being played in his honor?
Great question. So Nate is the son of Steve Hardy, who was a professor up at UNH there. So he's been connected to the Boston community for a long time. Nate and I served together, not directly at the same unit, but and I wasn't with him when he was killed in action. But what we've done at Warrior for Life Fund, really since we've been doing this for about 12 years, is try to identify a veteran, somebody that we lost inside of our formation, and then have games in honor of them and bring their families out to be with us and to honor the names of our fallen. Steve Hardy, the father of Nate, has just been an amazing ambassador for us. He's been a mentor for me as I put the charity together, and he just continues to be well respected and always participates with us up here in Boston. A couple of key last minute additions to my roster. I'm bringing up both Megan Bourgeois and her two kids. We lost Brian Bourgeois about 2 years ago, was a close friend of mine and a participant in Warrior for Life Fund. And then also Megan Ernst is coming, and her husband, Mike Ernst, died about 18 months ago with her two kids. They're going to be up here with Steve Hardy to drop the puck out on the ice. So it's a real special moment for us. It's really about remembering those we've lost in our formation, and really about just coming together to have a great game, camaraderie, and meaningful relationships with the Boston Bruins in the community.
Frank, how did the relationship with the Warrior for Life Fund come to be and the Bruins alumni come to be?
Well, a mutual friend of Ryan and I, Tony Cabana from Cross Insurance, had been down to Virginia Beach the summer of 2017, and he experienced the therapeutic hockey program that was going on down there with the Navy SEAL, Naval Special Warfare community and their families. And he came back, and when he was heading down the next summer in 2018, he invited me down. And so Bob Beers and I went down to experience it firsthand. And first off, we were welcomed into their community like brothers. We went out on the ice with them and played with their families, their wives, their children. And I felt an automatic bond with this group, but more importantly, how much they cherished hockey and how important hockey was to them for keeping their bonds together between active duty and veterans, to keep their family bonds together, and to keep connected when they were coming off deployments. So when I came back to Boston after that experience, I started spreading the word to the Bruins alumni, started beating the drum and say, hey, look, these guys asked for nothing down there. They could use our help to help elevate their program. So the next year, myself, Bob Sweeney, Tim Sweeney, Ken Hodge Jr., Bruce Crowder, and Dave Jensen went down. We ran some hockey clinics, and they all got immersed in the program. They came back fired up. And in 2019, we decided to rebrand as the Warrior for Life Fund and have a kickoff weekend series with the New York Rangers called Face Off for Heroes, the Alumni Classic, where we announced this new partnership with the folks down in Virginia Beach. We played home and away with the New York Rangers here in Bentley University and down in Madison Square Garden the next day. And the cool thing about it, Adam, was we had 7 Naval Special Warfare personnel embedded on our teams, 5 on the Boston Bruins alumni and 2 on the New York Rangers alumni team. And we gave them an experience they never would have had before. It was wonderful for us to share the ice with them, but boy, did they take away a lifetime experience being on the ice at Madison Square Garden and at Bentley University. And from there, it's really just snowballed, Adam. We've got great support from the Boston Bruins Community Relation, Boston Bruins Foundation. And whenever this game comes around, and this will be the 4th time we've played it, everybody on our roster wants to be part of it. So, because they respect what these guys do for our country, they're the tip of the spear. And if we can help them in any way we can, we're going to do it as an organization.
Yeah, and you could see that when they were players too, right? Because the members of the military are honored during home games at TD Garden. The Bruins do a great job of recognizing, and you can see that the players certainly appreciate that. And Mark, as an ambassador for the Warrior for Life Fund, you know, I know your involvement as an ambassador, but also, you know, I was doing some research and saw that you took part in the adaptive athletes on the ice with the adaptive athletes on the ice. For their annual inter-squad game. Why'd you take part in that? What does that mean to you?
Oh, man, it's really become, just a heartwarming moment for me. And, now when I go down there every summer and join the guys down there, we do some gentleman skates down there as well with the military guys. But the next day, we have a little sled game and with those adaptive players. And I'm telling you that it is the most gratifying thing I think I've ever done. Getting on one of those sleds, and not only is it impressive and it's unbelievable what they can do on those things, but just to see them smile or to help them smile in some ways where you can just see they're thinking, overthinking, and they're obviously going through much more difficult thing that I've ever had to go through. So. I just like I said, I love skating with the Navy guys or the military guys, but this sled hockey is really become a focal point for me when I do go down there. I really do look forward to it, and I see some of the same kids every year now, and it's not just a quick wave hello. I'm getting more hugs now, and it's really been an awesome opportunity for me, and something I obviously will continue.
Yeah, just fantastic. And Ryan, you talked about your roster, and Frank also mentioned that the Warrior for Life Fund team was able to pull out a win. How do you feel about your roster this year going into the game?
Well, we're just happy to be up there and and have a family event and to really enjoy the Boston community. And I'm not trying to avoid the question here, but really what it is for us is about meaningful relationships. We always ask our players to bring their families with them. We help support them bringing their families up there. So it's not just about the game. It's more about the weekend and the experience for them that happens. With regard to the lineup, I try and pull active duty guys from the East and West Coast, try to spread the love around as much as I can so we don't have the same players coming every year. But I guarantee you that I have the very best players that I can find across the Naval Special Warfare community to line up with these guys. Last year it was really, really tight. We actually flew some guys in from overseas, and they showed up last minute. And it was a great game last year, I thought. 2-1, the Bruins pulled it out. But we take this game seriously, just like the Bruins are. We're competitors. We like to compete, but really it's a fun game for us to play and just have an opportunity to be treated like a professional athlete, which we would never experience that otherwise.
Finally, Frank, I'll ask you, how do you feel about your roster and which rookie alumni are you most looking forward to see play?
Oh boy, we're feeling pretty good about our roster. Let's just put that on the record. We have, who am I most interested in? I played against Mark Recchi down in Philadelphia last January, and he still
I remember
has
that
it.
game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. That game was probably 20 minutes too long for us. So we were gassed. But, it's interesting. We couldn't find a goaltender to go down and play. They were just all busy. So we reached into the Naval Special Warfare bag and brought up the 2 goaltending tandem Navy SEALs that beat us back in 2021. So we gave them an experience down in Philadelphia they wouldn't normally have. So looking at the roster, boy, I'm really looking forward to see David Krejci out there. As the way he connected with Bergie on the ice, they just know where each other is at. I think it's going to be a thrill for our fans to see this roster come out. I know that tickets, when they go on sale on November 11th, November 9th, they're going to get, it's the 9th. And most people don't know this, but the Stanley Cup will be present at the game.
Really looking forward to that game on December 7th at Warrior Ice Arena. And of course, the 2011 team, part of their identity anyway, was being stingy defensively, and Bruins teams that followed with Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara played to that identity. And that's something, Judd, that had been missing from the Bruins this year under Jim Montgomery. And, since Joe Sacco has taken the reins, it seems like he has really emphasized that, getting back to being stingy, getting back to being hard to play against. And we've seen that more often than not during Joe Sacco's time as interim head coach.
So the sample size is starting to get bigger, but in the first 7 games, they won 5 of those 7. There's only one other team that's been better defensively across that span in the National Hockey League. Penalty killing wise, the Bruins are number 1. If you look since Joe Sacco took over, heading into the back-to-back games against Detroit and the Blackhawks, they're at 94.5%. They've started to cut down on the amount of preventable penalties that they took early in the season. They're still overall in the National Hockey League. I think after the Red Wings game, they were still averaging the 3rd most penalty minutes per game, but those numbers have come down significantly. And I think, Adam, because they've started to check harder, because their practice habits have been better, I think they've had the puck more often. That's why you're starting to see some goal production starting to pick up. It still has a ways to go. There's no question about it. But all those things have combined to allow the Bruins to get off to a good start under the interim head coach, Joe Sacco. Long way to go, and you've got a difficult schedule coming up.
Yeah, and defenseman been shot ready more often, it seems. Case in point, Charlie McAvoy and Nikita Zadorov in their home game scoring goals for the Bruins. An absolute bomb from Zadorov on Tuesday. And full disclosure, we are taping this before the Blackhawks game in Chicago on Wednesday. So, to see the Bruins playing better at home has been encouraging as well. 8-6-2 now at home on the year, heading into their final home game in a long time. Their final home game in a long time on Saturday. It will be a matinee game against the Flyers. They won't be back at TD Garden for another 2 weeks after that, because they're embarking on a nearly 2-week-long road trip that will start in Winnipeg and will be the Western Canada swing in Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, and then you'll have Seattle as well. And not going in order, just naming off the cities that they're going to be playing in. Judd, that is that's going to be a big trip to say the least for the Bruins in length of time, in the level of competition, and to see where they're at.
It's going to be a serious test for the team. It starts in Winnipeg, as you mentioned, on December 10th. The Jets, I understand they've stumbled here a little bit of late. Nikolai Ehlers is also banged up. Not sure if he's going to be available for that game when the Bruins start that long trip. But that's a team that's gotten off to a terrific start here in the first half of the season. Seattle has always been competitive when they've had an opportunity to play against the Bruins, and then you start to get into the meat and potatoes of the trip. The Vancouver Canucks, they've actually had a hard time winning at home early in the season. The Bruins certainly deserved a better fate in the first meeting against the Canucks. They did everything except score against Kevin Lankinen. But that's a team that's always a test when you're playing on Hockey Night in Canada. It's that first Saturday of the trip against the Vancouver Canucks. Then you head into Calgary. They've been a surprising team here early in the season. And then it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers to close it out. And then after that, you have to remember, so the Bruins are going to spend the night in Edmonton rather than red-eyeing at home. They'll have Friday off. They're basically going to travel the entire day going cross-country. Then you've got a division game at home against Buffalo, a day off, and then you've got an important Eastern Conference game against the Washington Capitals. Now, Alexander Ovechkin has started to skate. Not sure if he'll be back for that game, but the Caps have gotten off to a terrific first-half start in the Eastern Conference. So the next couple of weeks for the Bruins will be a serious test.
Yeah, no question about that. And you mentioned Vancouver. It'll be interesting to see, A, if Jake DeBrusk can score a goal at home, right? Because I believe all of his goals have come on the road this year, including the one he had against the Bruins. But B, most importantly, if Thatcher Demko is back for the Vancouver Canucks. I know there was some talk. He's coming off the 2 knee procedures. I know that he hasn't played this year. I know there's some talk, that he might have rejoined the team on the road trip, but that not the case. And there was some more thought that he might be ready, if not on the road trip, be ready for the start of that homestand. But it looks like it's not going to be quite the start of that homestand because of the fact that he needs some practice time. And so that could land you on December 14th, after the Canucks have been home for a couple of games and Demko gets some practices under his belt. You could see Demko between the pipes against the Bruins. That'll be interesting to see. Another point, Judd, is that, they're 2-1 against these teams that they've played so far this year. Obviously, those games have been at home. You remember the Calgary game was an overtime win. They lost to the Canucks, and then they had that shutout win over the Kraken on November 3rd, which of course was Jack Edwards' night. And so they haven't seen the Jets yet. They haven't seen the Oilers yet. And so, it's going to be a tough test. And in terms, I do want to talk briefly just about the Flyers game coming up on Saturday, Judd. It's a Flyers team that was in a bad way when they played the Bruins at TD Garden, and John Tortorella had called his team out before that game, and they end up coming through with a shutout win over the Flyers. They, of course, lost to the Bruins in Philly that following Saturday, but they've played a lot better under Tortorella. And, of course, Matvei Michkov has been stealing headlines there.
Well, Travis Konechny's also off to a terrific start. He's got 13 goals and 30 points in the first 25 games of the season. I think the Flyers, much like last year, and it's a credit to John Tortorella and the players, I don't think that they figured to be in the mix last year. I don't know if they figured that they would be in the mix this year, but that's where they are. And consider the fact that there's such instability in net. Sammy Ersson, he's only played 10 games this year. He got hurt against the Bruins, and I remember the comment from John Tortorella, and this was before the start of the season, and his quote was, "When it comes to my goaltending, it scares the crap out of me." But they've got guys in Fedotov and Kolosov that have been able to give them opportunities to win games and pick up points. That is not going to be an easy game on Saturday afternoon at TD Garden before the Bruins head out and start that trip that we talked about.
Yeah, Philly 8-4-2 in the month of November. They've had points in 5 straight games, so they've been playing well. And so the Bruins will have a test before they head out on the road. And Judd, these national games, man, like I'm kind of curious. Do you, when you're watching these games, whether it's at TD Garden or if you're watching on TV with us, again, we're recording before the Blackhawks game. Do you call the game in your head when you're watching the game, or you just watch it as a fan? How do you watch the game when you're not calling it?
No, I'm usually watching the game as a fan, or as someone who's just trying to pick up. All right, I need to stay current. No, I'm not necessarily calling the game.
No, but in your head, not out loud. I'm not saying that you got your headset on in your living room that's not plugged into anything and calling the game. I'm just wondering if you're doing it in your head.
No, I will say this, and this has nothing to do with the national games. I want to be clear on that. A lot of times, so like before the Bruins play their next game against the Philadelphia Flyers, and I love Jimmy Jackson. I think he does a fabulous job, and there are a ton of great play-by-play announcers around the National Hockey League. But a lot of times when I'm watching that next team that we're going to play, I will do it with the sound off, so I can just basically focus in on the players in particular, so I can get those numbers down so I'm ready to go once Saturday's game hits. But for the game against the Red Wings, the game against the Blackhawks, I'll watch the sound with it all the way up.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, it's interesting. I always wondered that. It's just like, because you call all of these games and to see, another set of another broadcast team calling the game, I was sort of wondering, what your move was there.
No, but at the same time, I might not necessarily call it, as I'm watching it, but I will. If this makes any sense, I will almost watch it as a play-by-play announcer to make sure that I understand, okay, what's going on? Have the Bruins put together back-to-back shifts? Have they been able to go tape to tape? What does the neutral zone look like? What did that power play look like? Hey, was that a preventable penalty? Where are they looking for opportunities scoring? So I'm still trying to watch the game like I would as a play-by-play announcer, but I'm not calling it as we go.
I just have a visual now of you calling the game in your living room with like nachos and beer here and like, score! Your wife's like, what the hell, John? John is asleep.
That's the way I did it during the pandemic.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, thanks for taking us behind the curtain in terms of your preparation for the next Nesson game.
No Wizard of Oz here, baby.
That's right. That'll wrap this edition of Hockey Hub, 17th episode in the books. It was a lot of fun talking about the Centennial game, looking back on that. And here's to the next 100 years, Judd.
A toast. Great stuff, Adam.
There you go. All right. We will see you next time on the Hockey Hub. Take care.